Now, the next step, because you're making this into a creature, is to go ahead and start adding the things on that you want. So some people might choose to have this whole pot be just a head, or some people might have the pot be a body and you're adding a head or adding horns, something, whatever you want to. But one of the first steps that you can take is to go ahead and add your feet. And for some people that may mean that you're adding things that actually look like feet, like if you're doing a cow or a pig or some animal that has 4 legs, you can add your 4 legs here. But what you want to start out with is just a bit of clay, all right? And you can make a coil. So a lot of times, if you just grab clay and you start squeezing it, you can make a coil or a rope of clay, and then you kind of just cut off what you need so that you can have relatively all the same size pieces ready to go to attach. All right? So let's say I wanted to attach these. These all look terrible right now. Do not attach anything like this. We don't just throw something on there and hope you get a good grade. We've got to actually make sure it looks nice and neat. So what I want to do is make all 4 of these uniform, which means make them all look the same. So if you kind of tap the tops and the bottoms, roll out the middle, make them look good, then you can start attaching them. Nothing says you can't come in here and smooth some things out here too. So smooth out what you need to. Round off some of those edges. You can just press on them, smooth them out, start making them look really good. All right? So let's say I'm not trying to make feet, or like actual legs. I'm just trying to make the feet to my pot. Okay? So right now I've got 2 of them that look pretty good. They're roughly the same size. If they're not, you can change them up, scrape away something, just to make them the size. Now, don't forget, you still need to slip and score. So what you need to do is figure out where you want these to be situated. Let's see, I need to get the other one done real quick. Okay, so you need to figure out where you want these to be situated on here. And then the best way is to just sort of trace around them to figure out where they touch. And then when you lift it off, you'll notice you've got this area that you know exactly where you need to rough it up. So right now we're scoring. You score this side too. You add in a little bit of water. And if we have slip, you'll use it. I'm starting to get a little bit of it. But if you have slip, we need to use that instead of water. So once you have these roughed up and your slip's on it, you just wiggle it back and forth until it starts to stick. Okay? And then you'll do the same to these 2. One thing that most people forget is that this does not mean it's attached. At this point, you might want to take one of these tools and you'll almost dig into the bottom part. If you can see that, you almost dig into this bottom part and drag some of that clay onto your base all the way around it. And you don't have to lift yours up like I'm doing, and the more work you can do with it sitting on the table, the better. But I'm just trying to make it so that you can see it. Now, once you're done with this, you'll notice that this part starts to get really thin. So what you'll want to do is add in that extra coil of clay. And on our other project, you guys have had to do this same thing, but not as much as you'll probably start having to do for everything else, for all your other projects. So you're just going to get yourself a little coil of clay, and you're going to take it and put it all the way around. All right, you want it to go all the way around that outer edge, and then you do the same thing. Part of it goes up onto the leg, the other part goes down. Okay, now obviously mine didn't go all the way around, but just for the sake of time, we're going to be slow. But then what you want to start doing is smoothing this all in. Smooth it with your finger, smooth it with the tools, whatever you need to. But again, part of craftsmanship is your ability to make things look good and not choppy or rough or kind of halfway done. So if you notice, this looks like it was always supposed to be a part of this. It's extremely smooth, very well attached, and then you could do the same thing for your other two. Now I'm just going to pretend that these are kind of on here so that I can move on. But as you can tell, that sits nicely on top of these feet. Okay? If your feet are placed really far apart, maybe you've got a bigger pot, you may need to put something in between here because your feet are so wet. Like right now, the fact that one of these can be smushed means the feet are wet enough that they may not support your piece. So you might need to put something in between here. The next thing you want to do is figure out what you're going to do with your outside. You can always add things on top of your rim. So if you wanted to do some sort of head, ears, any horns, anything like that for the creature that you chose. But you also want to think about what you're going to do around the outside. So let's say I wanted to do a face. And normally you would never lay this on the side. I'm just kind of doing it so you can look at it. But we want to do, maybe let's go for an eyeball, okay? So I'm going to figure out what kind of shape do I want that eye to be. Doesn't have to be this kind of shape, but it can. And I want it to look like part of the eye is sunken in. So I'm going to carve a bit away, but you have to be aware how thin or thick this is because you don't want to go all the way through it. But I'm just kind of taking this tool right here, carving away what I need to. Okay, I'm going to carve a little bit of that away too. So now we have this sunken in just a little bit, all right? And then you can start taking clay, you roll it into a ball, all right? So I've rolled that into a ball. A lot of times I'll call these buttons. That's just what some people call them. And then you can cut this in half. Now keep in mind we're doing an eye, okay? So we do want to make a more three-dimensional look to it. I think I'm going to cut that in half one more time. Okay? We want to make that eyeball look 3D. If something is supposed to be 3D, you want to do it that way. Okay? So this might look funny here, but we're trying to kind of smooth things together to make it work. So we rough that up, put some slip on there, move that back and forth, and now you can actually smooth this out. So with the eye, since it's more of a sphere, it's going to be higher in the middle and lower on the ends. Okay, so now if I turn it to the side, you can see that that eyeball sticks out a little bit. All right, it doesn't need to stick out huge, but then you can kind of go around the edges, clean things up, make it look like it's a little deeper if you want it to. Just kind of define the edges, whatever you need to. So I've used a little bit of carving, I've used a little bit of adding. If you wanted to add some sort of arm, you could do that as well. All right. But here's the deal. You don't ever want to make it so that things stick straight out. Because a lot of times what will happen is once you set this back up and it's kind of sitting this way, this arm is actually going to droop. Okay? So you've got to be very aware. You don't want anything too huge coming directly off of it. Okay? Does anybody have any other questions? Anything that they needed to be done that they don't understand how to do it? Okay. Awesome.